Breitbart saw a splendid campaign where Vox saw a progressive reckoning, and both pointed at the same Wisconsin result. This is Parallax Newsroom. Vox published an autopsy for progressives, while Breitbart quoted a Democrat calling Hong's effort splendid. On Tuesday, Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley defeated State Representative Francesca Hong in Wisconsin's Democratic gubernatorial primary. Vox framed the result as a turning point for progressives, asking what the loss means for the movement's future. NBC News called it an upset, emphasizing the close margin and labeling Hong a democratic socialist. Axios declared that socialist fever had broken, treating Crowley's win as proof the party's left wing had hit a wall. Breitbart took a different angle entirely, quoting Representative Gwen Moore warning that Republicans will weaponize socialism and praising Hong's campaign for focusing on issues people care about. The Washington Times sidestepped the policy debate entirely, blaming streamer Hassan Piker's involvement for Hong's loss. The read, the verifiable fact is a close primary result, but the framing tells four different stories. Vox and Axios share an interpretation that the left lost, but Vox mourns it while Axios celebrates the fever-breaking. NBC keeps the word socialist front and center, a label that does real work in signaling ideological stakes to its audience. Breitbart's framing is the most revealing. It quotes a Democrat praising Hong, which lets the right-leaning outlet argue the Democratic Party itself is worried about the socialist label. The Washington Times skips the policy debate entirely, pinning the loss on a media personality, which shifts responsibility from the electorate to an outsider. What every outlet omits is turnout data and the actual margin, which would tell voters whether this was a realignment or a close race decided by mechanics. Fox News dug up a Sharia obligation, where Vox saw a breakthrough for Muslim voters. Abdul El-Sayed won the Democratic primary for governor in Michigan. Vox framed the victory as a milestone for Muslim political engagement, exploring what it signals for the community's growing role. Democracy Now! Aired an interview with El-Sayed, quoting him saying people are tired of the politics of hatred. The Dispatch warned that Democrats had thrown away an advantage in Michigan by nominating him. Fox News led with an unearthed interview, claiming El-Sayed described a Sharia obligation, quoting him saying it was not because of fear. The New York Post focused on a social media post, calling his challenge to a GOP opponent to play tackle football weird. The read, the verifiable result is a primary win, but the coverage splits sharply along two tracks. Vox and Democracy Now! Treat the win as historic and community-focused, emphasizing identity and rejection of division. The Dispatch and Fox News run in the opposite direction, with the Dispatch arguing the pick is electorally risky and Fox foregrounding a years-old interview about Sharia. The word obligation is doing heavy lifting for Fox, implying religious law supersedes civic duty, while El-Sayed's full context, that he was not acting out of fear, is buried. The New York Post's focus on a football challenge is the most telling omission. It ignores policy entirely in favor of personality politics. What no outlet provides is polling data on El-Sayed's general election viability, which is the actual stake for Michigan voters. Breitbart called it an adventure, while NPR kept the exit to 5 words. White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt announced she is stepping down from her role. NPR reported the departure plainly, noting only that the press secretary was leaving. Axios confirmed the news with a straightforward account of Leavitt stepping down. Breitbart quoted Leavitt calling the job the honor and adventure of a lifetime, and separately reported Vice President J.D. Vance, saying he was sad to see her go. The read, this is a story where the framing gap lies entirely in tone, not in facts, because every outlet agrees on what happened. NPR's 5-word framing is deliberately flat, treating the resignation as a routine personnel move that needs no embellishment. Axios sits in the middle, adding enough context to inform readers without editorializing. Breitbart's framing is purely reverential, using Leavitt's own words about adventure and honor to frame her tenure as a success story, then stacking Vance's reaction to reinforce the narrative of an administration that will miss her. What every outlet omits is the reason for the departure, whether it is voluntary, planned, or connected to a broader staff reshuffle. Without that information, the reverential tone from Breitbart and the flat tone from NPR are both choices that tell the reader how to feel about an event whose actual circumstances remain unreported. The Guardian saw a crackdown on the far right, where the Washington Times saw a fraud case. An expert linked to the Southern Poverty Law Center was arrested on federal charges. NBC News reported the arrest as a case involving SPLC informants, keeping the focus on the organization's network. The Guardian framed it as a political act, accusing the Justice Department under Trump of targeting an expert on the far right as part of a crackdown. The Washington Times described the defendant as a former SPLC official and placed the arrest in the context of a federal fraud case. Breitbart did not provide a headline among the samples. The read, the word doing the most work across these headlines is case. The Washington Times pairs it with fraud, pointing readers toward financial crimes, while NBC pairs it with informants, pointing readers toward the SPLC internal operations. The Guardian uses the word crackdown, which reframes a federal arrest as a political weapon wielded against researchers who track extremists. The verifiable fact is an arrest, but the charge details, which would tell viewers whether this is fraud or political retaliation, are omitted from all three headlines. The Guardian's framing implies motive without evidence, while the Washington Times implies a clean financial crime without confirming the charges. What is missing from all sides is the actual indictment, which is the only document that would close the gap between a crackdown and a routine prosecution. Across all four stories, the outlets that declared winners and losers were the ones that left out the numbers that would prove them right, and the ones that supplied emotional adjectives left out the reasons. Subscribe for the framing gap.